Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Team Scrims now properly getting underway here in Modern Warfare 3 with lots of action for Los Angeles Guerrillas last night, but also the new OpTic Nation OpTic Challengers team with Scump, Nadeshot, Zinni and Boz got some Team Scrims in yesterday against kind of like an OG FaZe clan squad in some respects. Depending what happens with the Prid situation, OpTic Scump might be required on the primary OpTic team, but for now they will be getting their practice in for the start of Challengers, which is going to begin not that far from now. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, some crazy stuff. This from, well, that was heard from Daryl on stream yesterday that Guerrillas might be operating this year without a head coach. Now, I don't know how this exactly would be possible, simply because, well, you're meant to have to sign 5 players, right? There is presumably a rule still in the rulebook that says you are mandated to have 1 player on your bench at all times and then 4 starting players. That's the rule. I mean, even back in Modern Warfare 19, it was 7 players mandated on the team, 5 starters and 2 substitutes. Now, sure, one of those substitutes could also be a head coach, but you would think that the strategy of many teams to try and save money over the last few years has been, all right, we have to have a 5th man somewhere, so that 5th man might as well be the coach. So either Guerrillas have found a way such that they don't need to follow the rules anymore, and they're simply going to do whatever they like and not even have a 5th man and just say, you know what, CDL, we're not going to pay any more than we absolutely need to. We'll fill the roster of 4, but we refuse to fill the 5th man. And the CDL will be like, well, I guess 12 teams better than nothing, so sure, we accept your agreement. Or whether they will have a substitute, but that substitute won't be a coach. Now, does a team need a coach? I definitely think it's beneficial, but you know, people always talk about the OpTic Dynasty. They didn't have a coach and they won basically everything. And sure, Complexity and Evil Geniuses, they had a coach in Mr. X back in the day, but all he did was talk trash across the main stage rather than really do any actual coaching. So it's not necessary if you've got players like Crim, you know, like veteran in-game leader type guys, which isn't necessarily the case on Guerrillas, but maybe it is to some degree. So I guess we'll stay tuned for this one because they still haven't confirmed their actual roster. To be fair, most teams have not confirmed a substitute yet, and usually they will just, you know, some of them will just put their coach down as a sub to save a bit of cash. Some teams will actually sign a proper sub like FaZe with Classic, for example, and then they have a head coach on top, and then they have a search and destroy guy on top of that. Same story with Toronto with lots of staff on the back ends, which is, you know, I think there's a correlation between that and actually playing well, but Guerrillas, they're not here to actually win anything, are they? They're just here to survive and fulfill their obligations until the CDL calls it a day. Holly as well is back at it again. I know that she does this tweet every year, so I thought we might as well mention it again, that the things I do to see Damon compete again, not just compete, but be happy while competing. Feel like I've tweeted this exact same thing a few times since his retirement, a few times a year. To be fair, yeah, she probably tweets this every like 2 or 3 months, to be honest. But look, Karma is probably not going to come back and compete. I don't necessarily think that he wants to, but he is involved in competition to some degree. As OpTic's head coach now, effectively going into the new season. He's playing in the early kickoffs. If he likes this game a lot, sure. But look, there is some former OpTic player that is, I would say, more likely to make a return, and that could be OpTic Scump. We'll get into that in a second. Firstly, from Scrap, I did want to mention, because I know that we roasted him a bit yesterday for not winning anything yet. They have finally won a tournament. They won a couple of tournaments yesterday. I guess 3v3s with Envoy and CleanX. So yeah, finally, the Ultra guys got over the line in a couple of finals. Doug was also not so happy that he wasn't invited to this 150k tournament. Pretty interesting, actually, because when we went through this, you'd kind of expect, now you might think of reasons why Doug wasn't invited, but you would probably expect, given that there's 16 teams, 64 players, you know, big name pros, content creators, all this type of stuff, the fact that Doug wasn't there. So, you know, Doug wasn't so happy about this, especially since I won the Hitch 150k before, apparently. Didn't he win that with, like, Holly and stuff like that? And I guess she isn't playing either. So, yeah, tough to say, but interesting for Doug nonetheless. Now, let's talk about some scrims, because this was spotted yesterday. Los Angeles Guerrillas up against, what, the new LA Guerrillas team, up against Temp's team, which is pretty interesting. This is theoretically going to be one of the best teams in challenges, and this team is probably just about good enough to get into the league. So they played a terminal hardpoint here, put them in a 100-point club. Of course, aSeam, Diamond, Con, Gunless, and Kremp. That's the team of 4. again, you know, all things considered, it's not terrible, really. Like, I'm looking at the Carolina team, I'm looking at the Vegas team, I'm looking at the Los Angeles Gunless team, and I'm thinking, well, you know, these teams are at least relatively well put together. Will these type of teams still get slammed by the top rosters? More than likely, yes. But honestly, this season is shaping up pretty nicely. There is a clear divide, I think, after you get past the top 4, really. Maybe top 5, depending how things go. But I think the battle at the top for event victories, and then the battle for, like, World Championship qualification is going to be mega competitive this year. So I'm really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, we don't have as many events as I would like. But Temp's team kind of gets slammed in this one, right? Of course, Temp, TJ, Spartan, Prolude. Interesting just because Temp was going to be on that team with Fellow. Then he decided not to go there and decided to join these guys instead. This was a pretty close one as well between Vegas and the Carolina Royal Ravens. They played a couple of series. I'm pretty sure all of these maps were really close and competitive. Purge had 12 kills here, but Nero had 33 for the dub, and Attach had all the hill time. So, yeah, definitely these teams are figuring out the way they want to play. This map, it was, Real with 29, and it was GodRx with most of the hill time. So, it's early days. Teams are figuring it out. But yesterday, I think Vegas won most of the series, or most of the maps they played against Carolina, but they were very competitive maps. So, early doors, these teams look pretty similarly matched. But, going to LAN, I would possibly expect Clayster's team to get the better of them, at least at the moment, especially because GodRx was such a monster on LAN at the start of the Modern Warfare 2019 season. When it became online, it wasn't quite so good. I think he's a better LAN player in general. So just to look through some of them here, right? So LAG versus Temp & Co. Temp & Co. won map 1 at 250 to 179. Then Vegas Carolina was 250, 113. So I'm just going to scroll through so you guys can see what was going on. And then after that map 1, LA Guerrillas generally got the better of Temp's team. And generally, as I say, the same story for Vegas Carolina. But most of these maps were very close and competitive indeed. So far, pretty much all hardpoints, I don't think we've really seen anyone so far play in, play control or anything. Of course, search and destroy stuff is happening at the moment all of the time. But as Clay said, and as we looked at yesterday, the teams don't really know what they're doing for control right now. And I'm sure many players would not even like that to be the mode. I think aBeZy was pretty happy with it. He said that he doesn't like CTF, thinks it's the most boring game mode ever, but it's not even in the game to be played at the moment. And then the final map that was played between LAG and Temp was 250, 229 here on the Skid Row, which does seem to be a map that I know that in the beta people discussed that as a possibility to be played, and I guess it does make a fair bit of sense. So yeah, this is how things are going so far. It's very early days for these teams. It's only early scrims and stuff, but you do start to get a bit of a picture who's competitive, who's not so competitive, and I'm sure that will continue to develop over the coming days. Now, in addition to these scrims, we then got some other scrims involving Scump's new team, effectively. So Scump was maybe needed. He was needed on day one to play the kickoffs with the OpTic Texas guys with no Pred in the States right now. And actually, Pred was at the Chelsea game yesterday. I didn't share the Instagram story today, but he was at the Arsenal game for the Champions League in midweek. He was at the Arsenal game at the Emirates for the Burnley game, or a couple of days, or Saturday, whatever. And then yesterday, he was at Stamford Bridge for the Man City game, the crazy Man City game that was 4-4. So he definitely got his money's worth for that one. But he's still there in London, at least as of yesterday. So, we'll see how things go this week. I'm sure there'll be updates over the coming days. So Scump might be needed at some point if OpTic decide, you know what, we're going to start falling behind on our practice here. We need to start scrimming as a team of 4 in hardpoint because, Carolina, Vegas, LA Guerrillas. Now, I'm sure that OpTic aren't so concerned, oh no, like LA Guerrillas are scrimming ahead of us, like they're going to be better than us this year. I'm sure that's not a concern, especially with the way that the individuals in OpTic Texas have looked so far in this game. But at some point, they might decide, all right, Scump, get in here, like we need to do some practice. You can sub in for Pred for the meantime, which is a possibility. But if that's not happening, at least for now, Scump will be practicing with his own team of 4, which is the team of 4, the OpTic Challengers team that was discussed for a little bit of time, of Scump, Method, Nadeshot, and Bows. And this is like such an exciting prospect for, to actually happen going into this new season. The content potential is great. And sure, Scump is a very competitive animal and individual when they play Challenger tournaments or whatever they're going to do. If it doesn't go so well, if it does, you know, Scump might get frustrated, people might roast him, but I think everyone appreciates that this is just generally good content and a lot of good fun. And Scump was, you know, Scump's been cooking. Like, this was, so they played 4 maps, I believe, against like a kind of a mixed FaZe team. aBeZy was in there, so it's a little bit unfair playing against aBeZy, but then they had like Symbols and Zuma and Crowder were kind of rounding out the team. So it was a bit of like an OG FaZe scrim, and then it was effectively the OpTic Challengers team. But it's pretty funny to see these guys getting scrims in already. They lost map 1 here on the terminal, 250 to 233. Scump had 43, MettalZ had 41. And it's one of those teams that in the respawns, you wouldn't expect these guys to be crazy dominant necessarily. Like, you know, Scump and MettalZ are going to have to do a lot of hard carrying in the respawns. But in the search and destroy, that's when this team actually could be really competitive. Like, Bows and Nays, great search and destroy players, especially in like boots on the ground games like this. So, you know, I can definitely see this team in search. If they actually do go on to play some tournaments, like this team in search can actually be a serious like threat. But Scump and Zin are just going to have to like put the backpack on, I guess, at the respawns and let the other boys get the hill time, which I guess was their strategy here. They lost game 1, they lost game 2 as well. Lots of these really close maps here, for example, on the sub base. MettalZ had 39 on this one, aBeZy had 40. So, yeah, aBeZy was just running about cooking, to be fair. Some of the clips from him in a second are pretty wild. They also lost game 3 on the Skid Row, but they did get their own back. aBeZy again, 37 kills. Like, so there is a little bit of a discrepancy in class here between aBeZy when he's playing up against, you know, guys like Nade and Bows on the other side. But they did win at the Karachi. So this was at least a good result here for them to at least get 1 map win on the board in this scrim set. Scump drops 33 here with actually the most hill time as well. aBeZy again topping the leaderboard for score. Zuma has the most kills in this one. So just good entertaining stuff. And I'll show a couple of clips here from Scump, but also from aBeZy with some of the shots that he was hitting, especially on terminal with what is the rival, right? The MCW, the AR, is definitely the better weapon, and the rival, it looks like an SMG from this angle, but actually, you know, it almost looks like an AR when you actually customize the thing. It's a bit better than most of the other SMGs, but it is the weapon to use at the moment, and it is reasonable enough to be utilized. It's not great, but well, in the hands of Scump and the likes of aBeZy, it can still be viable.
Hey, dummy. Wow. Side door, back in the back.
Throwing below.
Nice.
There he is! He's weak to behind the planners. Weak a little bit behind the planners.
Bose is front.
Vinny, that front.
Alright, good job.
I got you.
Yeah, it's on P2.
Good shit, guys. Yo, middle map, middle hallway, on the Eskies,
Eskies, that.
Good job.
Good shit.
I'm with these HyDra.
I'm not peeking.
Yeah, he's not peeking it.
We gotta
Wait,
get him.
Eskies dead.
Behind us is dead.
Always, Seth. Oh!
Good job, Tom. That's a huge win.
So I don't think SMGs are completely cooked in this title. As I said, the ARs are definitely better, but I think that the SMG is, at least over time, they should be better. I'm sure they'll do some balancing and stuff. And in the hands of aBeZy, they're still doing stuff like this. Now, I imagine Asim stopped shooting there because, yeah, you can't really be getting spot on like this. Asim comes up behind aBeZy and then just completely, I mean, yeah, that was pretty disgusting, I can't lie. And this, I'm pretty sure, was against the LA Gorillas team just because, well, it was they were going by like Asim and co, but I'm pretty sure I can see Crimp in the feed as well, so I'm guessing it was the LA Gorillas team. If you guys know better, let me know. But FaZe pretty much for the first time yesterday getting their own team scrims in as well, and you know, that will make OpTic think a little bit, won't it, right? With Pred not being there yet, they'll think, you know what, well, FaZe are getting ready to go. FaZe are starting their practice. I'm sure it'll be the same in the coming days for Toronto and New York and the other top competitors. So it's something for them to at least think about. There was this some IU turtle I thought was interesting just to look at here with, well, the hardpoint locations. This is always the issue when these games launch is like, all right, where do you put the hardpoints? Does that really make any sense? Like, do the rotations make sense? Like, P2 to P3, I'm not really sure I like the idea of this rotation. I kind of prefer rotations that, you know, they flip-flop a little bit more across the map, and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Some maps make this happen, but even some hardpoint locations, the way it's designed, I know that Turtle came up with this idea, which is, you know, actually, yeah, so having what I thought about initially looking at those rotations, this makes a bit more sense to me, but we'll see, I guess. This map does work. Subbase does work, but it's one of those things that people think, all right, you know what, changing the rotation, changing the location could be a good idea. I remember even, I think it was Infinite Warfare, when I think it was Throwback Hardpoint on that game, they changed it a couple of months in, they changed the rotations, and the map started to play a bit better. I think also Breach, am I right about that? Breach in Black Ops 3, the first hardpoint I think used to be in the, not exactly the palace thing, but on the right-hand side of the map, where all the couches are and stuff, where the bomb site was just outside of, I think that used to be the first hill. They then changed it to put the first hill right in the middle of that tiny little hut, and then second hill was obviously P2, and then it went to P3, which was that building. So I'm pretty sure they changed that around at some point, Treyarch. So it can happen, it does happen, and hopefully Sledgehammer are receptive to feedback if the pros think, you know what, if we just, especially P5, like the P5 location on subbase probably isn't the best. It would make more sense, surely, to have it inside this building. And then the rotation to P1 would probably make more sense as well. So it's small things like that, you know, if Sledgehammer are receptive to and if the pros agree with, could be better for the longevity of the game this season. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. I'll just share this crazy wallbang actually here from McSeed as he gets this 1 versus 3 here on Invasion, where they get to stop the plant on the B bomb site, gets this wallbang, and then goes on to close out the round. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.